Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Report's reality check. And what a crazy week so far. I can't believe it. This is the wildest year in politics ever, and that's something coming after 2024. But tonight we're going to talk about a reality check for our friend James Carville, the mouth of the South. James Carville predicts the exact date that Trump will face a massive collapse in support. And of course, this came February 24th, 2025, a little over 2 weeks now. But this was such a strong prediction that I just couldn't not bookmark it and follow along. And so for the next week or two, I'll be tracking Trump's approval, as I do every day, in order to hold James Carville accountable for his prediction. But instead of reading the article, let's just go down to the video here. And maybe we'll see some spittle. Maybe we'll see him drool some chaw on his shirt. I don't know, but I love the angle he always has. It's such a crazy angle. Like, why is he doing this? Where's the camera? Like, does he have a laptop on his lap? It has to be zoomed in. I don't understand. Or he's got his phone like right in front of his face. He's doing these pieces on the phone. And this is one of the most legendary political consultants out there. I haven't seen anything legendary out of him recently, but let's go ahead and see if we would consider this prediction legendary.
But, it seems that the angrier Democrats get, the more it feeds into exactly what Donald Trump and Elon Musk and some of these other folks want, meaning Fox News plays sound bites of Democrats' heads exploding as sort of sport.
There's a lot right now.
What should they do from a media or political perspective?
Well, okay, I'm going to tease a piece I'm pretty sure will be coming out that I'm doing in the New York Times, probably Monday or Tuesday, but sometimes they'll kill it. But what I've said very publicly, Democrats need to play possum. This whole thing is collapsing. It doesn't need Elizabeth Warren and somebody screaming to pacify some progressive advocacy groups in Washington, which, by the way, I wish these people were just useless. They're actually worse than useless, that they're detrimental. And they never, ever learn to shut up.
Well, that's true.
And so, Dan, this is what I believe. I believe that this administration, in less than 30 days, in the midst of a massive collapse.
Oh.
And particularly a collapse.
I'm spotting the drool.
In public opinion. Della Volpe at Harvard, who's very good. I used to think, once I saw a Harvard youth poll, I discounted it. I've come to say it's a pretty damn good poll. Pretty good guy. He's gone from 53 approval to under 30 to 39. Oh. That's a collapse. And all we need to do, the analogy I use, is Pickett is 500 yards from the stone wall. Hold your fire. You're gonna.
It's always like, is that a Confederacy? Is that a Confederacy reference? Somebody's gonna have to back me up on that. I'm not a historian. But what he was saying there in that poll, and I'm not sure what poll he's referring to, he was kind of slurring, but I think what he said was with voters under 30, Trump approval went from 53% to 39%. And I can tell you, I have not seen that in my numbers whatsoever. I would say 18 to 29-year-olds are certainly less Trump favorable than 30 to 39-year-olds, but the combined group had a Trump approval of 60% last week. It's down a little bit. I think it's 54% this week, but they are still the highest Trump approval cohort. We just looked at that, I think, Monday night, because that is signaling a massive change in politics as all of a sudden the people plugged into the internet and watching this whole debacle play out in real time are, getting the real news and everybody watching the idiot box. So that's enough of James Carville's drool. We're going to fact check this guy. Yeah, I really wonder if he got his New York Times piece out, or I wonder if they spiked it like he said. But everybody says, wow, James Carville says that Trump approval is going to plunge. He called it. And there's also some other stuff that we have to unpack later in the show when we talk about Democrats, because he had some advice to them that was actually probably some pretty good advice, and some advice that it appears that they're sort of taking right now. But here's where we're at today. And, we're we're going to go really deep into Trump approval. I've updated all the charts, but here's the one we have on our website. And he came into office at 53, 54% in the initial overnights. The first full data point was at 56%. Oh, I forgot it was 56. I thought it was 55. Well, good for Trump. And, you know, it plunged as his initial inauguration honeymoon wore off. That happens to everybody. And this was actually a pretty small drop. It got to 50 and then it rallied back up to 54%. Good for Trump. But where are we on February 24th, the day of James Carville's prediction, 50% Trump approval? Where are we today? 51%. Look at that. Absolutely flat. I've been calling this for weeks. What you're going to see is Trump approval at probably like 51, 52, plus or minus 2 or 3 points his entire term. He's not going to get into the low 40s, I don't think, and he's not going to get into the high 50s. This is where he's at. And what we should be watching is other things like approval index. If you're not familiar with this is the strong approvers minus the strong disapprovers. So Trump could have pretty high approval based on like the somewhat approves, but this is more of a measure of how divided and energized his base are versus how much hated he is by the people who absolutely hate him. And Trump has always had a pretty high strong disapprove rating, but believe it or not, it's lower now than it's been in a long time. I think for most of the first half of his first term, he was in the high 30s. He came into office like 35, 36. And Biden, for like half of his term, had 50% strong disapprovals, like pretty much from Afghanistan all the way until like the 2022 elections. It was pretty crazy. And so he came in with a positive approval index. It was 40% strong approve to 34% strong disapprove. Pretty strong considering the average for Biden's entire term is probably somewhere between -20 and -30. I think the lowest Biden ever got was -33. -33, that's astounding. You know, he had a strong approval in the high teens, I think. I think he got down to 15% once. And here Donald Trump is right now, after a tumultuous week for sure, at 36%. Strong approve and only 40% strong disapprove with the -4 index. So he definitely took a hit here because of like, you know, a trade war and all the chaos with whatever with Ukraine. But it didn't affect his overall approval rating at all. Yeah, his supporters are dug in. Pretty crazy. Certainly not a plunge. But here is today's snapshot: 51% total Trump approval, 47% disapprove. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because the Republican numbers are absolutely astounding. He is losing some independents. His approval rating with independents is now 44%. Joe Biden was usually pushing about 30. And 55% total disapprove. So the independents didn't like the last week or two. He'll get them back. So he's -11 with independents. And this could just be the luck of the draw. Maybe we got some super, upset independents this week. But the Democrats aren't that bad. 28% total approval rating. Only 63% of Democrats strongly disapprove of Trump. That's a little higher than it's been, but it's still not as high as you could expect to see it. But the standout number here is a GOP 65% Trump strong approval. That is really high. And another 12, where is it? And a total of 83% total approve. I don't think we've seen a number that high at all yet this term, and it's certainly higher than it was last term. So that's really wild. Right track was, I think, down to 43, 44. It's back up to 45, but not up to the recent high of 48%. So what I pulled out is our full week results from March of 2021 to compare. Let's just take a look. Maybe we can page back and forth. And here in the crosstabs, they're ugly. Biden approval at this point in his term was only, 51%. So this is actually the same as Trump. Slightly lower strong approval, strong disapprove 39, roughly about the same. But his right direction, wrong track, his right direction was only 41, not 45. and it dropped precipitously after this. Look at his party. Look at his party approval. Democrats, 60%. Republicans are at 65 right now. Some would approve 21, so Democrats are 81% overall. Republicans were 83%. And independents here, 42 instead of 44. But listen, you know, I think actually Biden kicked around in this vicinity up until about May of 2021 after the masks came off and it was all downhill. But let's go back to the beginning of Trump's first term, showing that back then he had a 47% approval rating. His approval rating dropped. He came in higher, but it dropped right away. And what's that? 52% strong disapprove. Not great. But look at the Republican numbers. 55% strong approve, 21% somewhat approve, for a combined total of 76%. So Republican approval 7 points higher at this point in Trump's second term, and strong approve is 10 points higher. Back then, right direction was only 40%. Let's just go back. Incredible. Republicans are loving what Trump is doing right now, so much so that it's offset any losses he's had in independents. And independents are doing better than in this point in any of the prior two terms. Not what you would see if you're looking at the mainstream media pollsters right now. Here is the graphs. Here's right direction, wrong track, all of it. All almost 20 years that we have. And because it's 20 years, it's kind of compressed. But what you can see is this lower bottom blue line is right direction. And the peaks are where a new president comes into office. And what's kind of been happening is all the way leading up to Trump, right direction, was actually kind of picking up. So even though people may have said, well, things are going wrong, people were getting actually happier. Some of that, I think, is a recovery from the great financial crisis. But Obama came into office with about a 40% peak in the right direction. His second term had, I think, a 43% peak. And then Trump's first term had a 47% peak. Joe Biden was nowhere close to that, 42%. Some of that could be blamed on the Capitol riot for sure. Some of it could obviously be blamed on the election theft. But here we are, and it's hard to see here, but it's record right direction. Just, I think, 3 weeks ago now, 48%. And it's faded a little bit to 45%. So we can zoom in a little bit, see this a little bit better. This is just the last year. No, sorry. This is Trump's and Biden's term. And you can see that like Biden was structurally lower right direction, and Trump 2.0 is like nothing we've seen in our numbers. If it holds up in the mid 40s, like that's going to be crazy. And I think it's because people are watching Doge and What's Uncovered, and they realize that we're seeing something new, that traditional politics for the last couple of decades has been turned on its head. But let's look elsewhere for this plunging approval rating, shall we? Now, we know that Harry Enton on CNN, Forecaster N, already led with this narrative early last week when he came out with a segment that everybody saw, where he cherry-picked 4 polls and put them up because they were red. They were showing Trump underwater, and they were the worst ones here. It was like Reuters Ipsos that had Trump down 7. Who else did he have? I think he had CNN up there. I don't know. It's like all the names you'd expect to see. But in the Real Clear Politics aggregate, Trump is still positive with a 0.2 net favorability positive. Now, our today numbers in there, Rasmussen +4. What's been interesting is that our numbers, again, haven't really changed, but this sort of has. Like, this is narrowed. You know, back when we actually had Trump up only 2, and the aggregate had Trump up only 2 as well. So this is not the first time. This is not the first time where our numbers haven't changed and the entire industry has moved left. It kind of reminds me of the peak PSYOP period in the middle of August of last year, right after the DNC and into September, when they were trying desperately to pump Kamala Harris's numbers up because they thought that then her debate performance would put her permanently over the top, and obviously it all came crashing down. But if you look, with our +4, And again, we were like exactly middle of the pack for, I think, almost all of February. And all of a sudden now we're starting to creep right. No, we're not. They're all starting to creep left. Emerson's usually a point or two to the left of us. So that +2, whatever. Trafalgar has it at +5. Harvard Harris had a +9 about almost a month ago. And, there's some people, CBS has been polling like us. They have Trump +2. I, good pollster, Trump +3. But who has Trump the worst? Reuters Ipsos, the ones who, depending on the time period in September or October, were between 7 and 9 points to the left of our polling. And CNN, who actually, honestly, doesn't usually do this bad. Again, they're 11 points to the left of us right now. Let's actually take a look. Let's see if we can filter by CNN. So CNN has actually shown him like come in at -8. I don't know why they don't have a January number. Oh, that's gross. I mean, that's totally different than everybody else. That's a structural disadvantage for Trump. They're literally polling like never Trump Republicans. Look at this. So really the only place that Trump actually has plunged in a way that's probably driving that aggregate is Reuters. He went from a net +6 all the way down to a net -7. A 13-point move in a time period where like the same dates on my chart were like 55 to 51. So I have Trump going down 4. Again, expected. They have Trump going down 13. It's another op. It's another op. I can tell. I said this today. Yeah, I said this today. Prediction Master. The Real Clear Politics Trump approval aggregate is net 0.2 right now. Someone is going to drop a Trump -10 approval into the RCP aggregate by Friday to flip it negative for the weekend news cycle. I literally typed this, I think, 10 hours ago now. 10 hours. I knew it was going to happen. They wanted the headlines going into the weekend. Trump approval plunges. Trump approval is negative for the first time in Real Clear Politics. It's the only time that they actually mention Real Clear Politics is only when there's negative news for Trump. And believe it or not, what do we see out of political polls? I was wrong. It wasn't a -10. It was a -9. And again, it was SSRS, who is the pollster for CNN. It dropped to -9. That brings the total of all the polls in the aggregate down 2 points over 12 results, which is 0.116 repeating. So that's 2. That's 0.2. So Trump is now negative, almost negative in the Real Clear Politics aggregate. It's like so predictable, man. When you're in this industry for just like not even that long, you can start to see the gears. You can start to see the whole thing. So anyways, there's not that much longer. I think we only have 13 days left for James Carville to be proven wrong. And I don't know what would constitute a plunge. Is it the Real Clear Politics aggregate flipping upside down based on basically only 2 pollsters, CNN and Reuters Ipsos? I don't know. I think a plunge would have to be something like Rasmussen approval at 45. And again, that's possible. Biden left office with the 44. Is that going to happen in just under 2 weeks? I don't think so. So I think he's going to eat crow, and I'll keep making fun of them, even though he's pretty much irrelevant. But he's one of the only people out there that's willing to like actually make predictions. Everybody else is like taking his possum advice and crawling up into a shell. So I'll gloat. Maybe we'll have a show and we can make fun of him. Maybe I'll have him on. Maybe he'll come and actually talk to me about how he got it so wrong. If you've learned something, please follow us at RasmussenReports.com, Rasmussen_poll at Twitter. Follow us on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Mark_R_Mitchell at Twitter. And thanks for watching.